And welcome to Now You See TV. Today's episode, Q. QAnonymous is one of the most interesting conspiracy theories that you will find today. Hyper-intelligent dark web hackers, a secret messenger of the president, an internal struggle between the CIA-backed administrations of the past and the military-backed administrations of Trump. Joining us to discuss the most cutting edge of Q drops is Lou Comunale today, and I'm pleased to welcome him back to the show. We've interviewed him several times before. Welcome to the show, Lou. I almost called you Q. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm Q Comunale. Glad to have you here. I'm glad to be with you, Jake. I'm just joking, but this is a very exciting period of time that we're embracing. All around, people are conscious of Q. And today we're going to go into exactly who Q is. So thank you very much for having me on this program.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. And there's so much turmoil going on in today's government. Of course, there are many theories out there that we've heard just through the interwebs. We've never done a really specifically Q-oriented interview, and so I'm very interested to hear the research that Lou and his news team have been putting into this particular topic. And there's some current events going on that I kind of wanted to read a statement that somebody sent me just recently in regards to the Supreme Court nomination that just recently was chosen, because I think all of this is tying into this divide that is being ushered over the country between the left and the right, and it's really just this Q is seeming to give people hope that there's an internal fight going on in the administration between the white hats and the black hats is kind of how it's been presented. And just let me read this really quick before we get into it in regards to some recent current events that are going on. The president, the POTUS, has made a nomination to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court from a list of candidates that was submitted prior to the election. A current appeals court judge, investigated and vetted for 6 judgeships, is at the end of the confirmation review by the Congressional Committee, who were scheduled to vote on the candidate this week. This candidate's beliefs could overturn Roe v. Wade and once again outlaw abortion. No one has said this, yet most believe that this would be the outcome of his confirmation to the Supreme Court, this judge. And a claim of sexual misconduct has been announced for an alleged incident that is said to have occurred 36 years ago at a high school house party. The report has split the committee. The Congress and the leadership and the rank-and-file members of both political parties are split over the issue. There is no opportunity for the accuser to prove her claim, and there is no opportunity for the candidate to prove his innocence. The event is tearing the country apart by polarizing the two sides, and civility is no longer an option to be considered. Now, we're in a time during our country where political unrest is starting to reach an all-time high, paralleling that of the Martin Luther King marches that were happening years ago, and it's almost getting worse, and I believe it's going to continue to worsen than any kind of political unrest we've seen in the past. And this topic of Q is something that I only just recently heard of, probably at the beginning of this year is when I first investigated into it, and it's this concept of an anonymous message boarder who is leaving hints and clues and confirming their identity as somebody located in the White House. And of course, we're going to hear more about this and more details from this from Lou Comunale, and I'm really excited to get into this because this is hot stuff right now, guys. Some of the stuff that's coming out from the Q message boards concurrently is very, very interesting things, and this whole concept of the white hat, black hat internal battle and the different administrations from the past kind of coming against the Trump administration are some very interesting things, and no matter where you might fall in the political realm, I urge you to just hear out the various opinions and not shut down Lou just because you're not a Trump supporter. And so I think that's very important. He's got his Make America Great hat on, and so I think for sure, you guys, if you are not a Trump supporter, please give Lou the time of day and listen to this information regarding Q. And if you are a Trump supporter, this might be very interesting information for you that's regarding this current state of affairs in the United States. So, Lou, I don't have anything else to say in preparation for this to prep our audience, so let's get into this topic. Who is Q, and what has brought you in particular and your news group into studying into this over the past few months or year?
Okay, that's a great question. Q is anonymous. Nobody knows who Q is. He began reporting or dropping clues to message boards, 4chan and then later 8chan, beginning in October of 2017. And slowly but surely, he has been building an audience of patriots who have been following his drops religiously, practically, because he is speaking about a great major battle taking place between the president and the good guys against the deep state folks. And literally from the beginning, Q and the president have been working together. Nobody knows who Q is. He could be one person. He could be a team of people. Incidentally, sometimes when he signs his name Q plus, some people believe that that's the team, the Q and the team. But I'm a romanticist, and I tend to think that the Q plus means President Trump is looking over his shoulders. So what we're seeing here is the president's way of getting a message across to a population that he'd be unable to otherwise. The mass media is wholly against President Trump, and they are like 90% critical of him, and they would love to see his administration destroyed. Hollywood doesn't like him. Broadway doesn't like him. I mean, you just name the estate and they don't like him. Why? Because, look, you got to start thinking, if all these people are hating Donald Trump, there's got to be a reason. Everybody hated Jesus Christ, too, at the time when he was walking the street. I'm not comparing him to Jesus Christ by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm trying to say is that people that are following God's will in this life will be persecuted. And we see this major battle taking place between Q and the deep state. Now, Q has been giving us signs that he's been working with President Trump all along. For instance, he and President Trump will synchronize their drops. Trump on Twitter, him on his 8chan, and it's like within the minute. And so they are colluding, showing us in ways that, you know, that we should believe what Q is saying. You see this unprecedented attack, by the way, against Q. Why do you suppose? There are people that do not like Q's message, and Q's message comes directly from the president. It's his way of building up a patriot and a mass audience, bypassing the media, bypassing Hollywood, bypassing everybody else, and speaking directly. By the way, that's why the president also is going to be issuing the October 3rd presidential alert system. The reason is he wants a direct, unfiltered communication with the people of the American nation. And he needs it because once prosecutions start taking place, once people start going to jail, high-level people, the Democrats are going to riot like they have done in the past. And this is his way of just, you know, going right to the people and curtailing the uprising and having as smooth the transition of power as possible. Now, that's a strange concept, a smoothing transition of power. The president hasn't been in power for a while. I'm talking about the presidency. And only now is this president, he's going to be acknowledged as the greatest president we've ever had, because he is going to upseat the dark, deep state who have been colluding, who have been doing things behind the scenes for generations since the JFK assassination. And they have been empowered and emboldened in such a way that they literally colluded against this president, against him to win the election. And then after he won the election, they colluded to destroy his presidency. Now, all of this stuff is going to come out momentarily. I'm not saying momentarily today, but within a few days anyway, certainly before the election. What's going to happen is this. President Trump has announced we are going to declassify all of the FISA documents, all of the various related documents regarding Carter Page and why they surveyed him. So he's going to let it all out. And isn't it interesting that the Democrats are fighting against that? Up until now, they're talking about transparency and all that sort of stuff. But once the president says, well, we are going to bring out all this information, they say, no, you can't do that. You will be giving away the secrets of the methods and the ways that the intel works. Garbage. There's a Hussein. Q talks about Barack Hussein Obama as Hussein. He put out this this executive order a little bit ago before he left office. It was Executive Order 13-526, and in it he says this: regarding declassifying information, he says, in no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be declassified in order to conceal violations of law, inefficiency, or administrative error. Or 2, prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. This is already in Obama's executive order. So, you know, when President Trump came into office, he rescinded a lot of his executive orders, but not this one. He was going to use this because there was going to be a call for him to release and declassify the FISA documents that were going to show the nation and the world that there were people in high places of government. They were colluding to push Hillary Clinton into office and to deny Trump the presidency. And not only that, but to implicate him into a scandal with Russian collusion, as if that was true, in order to destroy his presidency. This is unprecedented. This is collusion of treasonous order. And all of this will come forth once the FISA documents are released. And it's coming soon, and it's going to happen before the upcoming elections. You bet your bottom dollar that that's going to happen, because President Trump is going to lay it all out before the American people. People talk about a blue wave this election. It's going to be a blue grave. They're not going to get far at all. Once all this information comes up, they're done for. They're finished. Now, let me just tell you regarding that, because we're talking about the declassification of FISA and what it means. Q stated in September 10th, he said this: the declassification of FISA will initiate the resignation, recusal, and or removal of Rod Rosenstein. Now, very interesting, the New York Times today just put out a piece, and this was put out by the deep state in order to push President Trump to fire Rosenstein now. Chuck Schumer and the gang would love to see him fire Rosenstein so that they could say, you're obstructing justice, and then make a circus out of the whole situation. Trump's not going to fall for it. He's not going to remove Rosenstein from the New York. The New York Times article, by the way, said that in April of last year, I believe, Rosenstein was suggesting about taping him or wearing a wire and talking with the president in order to bring a coup d'etat against him, saying that he's unfit for office, and they would apply the 25th Amendment. That was the story out there today. So things are happening quickly. I can't even keep up. We didn't even get up to Kavanaugh yet, but we will. Let's just go on with this. So the declassification of FISA will initiate the resignation, recusal, and the removal of Rod Rosenstein, because he was one of the signees on the fake FISA documents that called for the warrant or the surveillance of Trump officials, Trump people. So his name is on it. There are other names on it. James Comey signed off on it as well. So all of these deep state critters are all going to see the day of light, and judgment will come upon them. The classification of FISA will initiate the awareness that all signers will be currently under investigation. That's Comey, Rosenstein, Dana Buente, and Sally Yates. These people signed off on the FISA warrants. Now, of course, these things were fraudulent because they were based on a fake dossier put together by intelligence in Britain, because they have intel there too. And it was paid for by the Hillary campaign. And it was all under the cover and auspices of one Barack Hussein Obama. So everybody ends up coming down like dominoes, one after the other. You will see people going to jail. Continuing on with Q, he says, declassification of FISA will factually demonstrate without argument the U.S. government under Hussein, Barack Hussein Obama, knowingly presented false evidence to FISC court. That's where you get the FISA warrants, in an effort to obtain legal U.S. intelligence umbrella surveillance of Donald Trump for the sole purpose of influencing the 2016 election of the presidency and derail him with a fake Russian collusion. We have people that will be implicated. Brennan, Clapper, and others are all going to go down. What Q says, and he's been telling us this before it's been out in the news. And so everybody who's reporting on these things is Johnny come lately. We've known about it. If we followed Q, you'd know about it. These things were coming down the pike. But once the FISA documents are released, the whole house, from the White House, Obama's White House down, comes down. And this is an incredible situation and wonderful scenario. Now, what we're living under is we're living in a situation of biblical proportions in the way that we haven't seen it, but we've heard of the miraculous recovery and deliverance of ancient Israel from Pharaoh's grasp. In the same way, we are seeing just as majestic, just as powerful a deliverance of the American people from the deep state, who have been notorious in creating all sorts of mayhem across the nations. Various wars were sponsored by the deep state. They didn't want President Trump, for instance, to even talk with Kim of North Korea. They said, we're going to go into a nuclear war. Well, no. Well, that was the fear, because they're pushing war. They want war. They want people to be fighting one another. That's how they get money. And that's how they advance their agenda. But President Trump is not beholden to anybody. He doesn't owe anybody anything. And certainly people like Hillary and all those deep staters who tried to destroy him, Trump is the kind of man that will remember that. And he's not going to let them get away with it. So we are seeing a major spiritual battle taking place over the United States of America. And you could see it each and every day, as you talked about it earlier, that there is a major spiritual battle. And it is wonderful to behold. I have joy in my heart because I know who wins the battle. The deep state is not going to win the battle. The deep state is done for. Each and every day, more and more revelations coming out. Just like, slowly but surely, until finally, bam, the trap is shut and they're all caught. So we're living in great, remarkable times. Now, one other thing, we did talk about my hat, And some of you, I didn't realize that there might be some people who might not like President Trump, but I will tell you this. Making America great again is not only a slogan put out by President Trump, it is something that's in God's heart as well. It really is. Do you think God's heart is for any nation to fall into disrepair? Do you think God's heart desires that any nation fall due to its corrupt foundations? Of course not. That's why the foundations are being uncovered now. That's why the corruption is being revealed right now. God has a plan for America. He's not through with us. If you just if you just let me keep on talking, I'll just go back to Barack Obama's time. If you remember that time, just a few years ago, even the churches, even the prophets were saying, "Oh no, America is done for. America is doomed. We're never going to recover from this." And that was the whole mantra that everybody was saying. And you know what? Looking at it, we almost believed it because it looked so horrendous. How could we ever come out of this? God gave us a Hail Mary pass through Donald Trump. God brought him in at the right time. As a matter of fact, God worked out the whole situation. We're still talking about Q now. How did Trump really get into the office? Now, we know that he always had a thought about wanting to be president. And, you know, God probably put that in him from way back. But during the time of the Obama administration, when Obama was pushing the military down, and he was just downsizing them, he was cutting their funding, cutting their opportunities to do things, cutting them in every way, and he was promoting his intel operations, CIA, FBI. He was weaponizing them all, the DOJ, the IRS. I mean, if you were a Trump supporter, they removed your tax-exempt status. They literally weaponized everything during that administration. The military was being frozen out. They saw what was happening. So they realized we need to do something. Otherwise, we're going to lose our precious country, period. We have to do something. What they ended up doing, and I believe it was God-inspired, they approached Donald Trump. Now, this is all what Q's been telling us, by the way.
Hey, Lou,
so
just if I could make a quick comment, you might find it interesting to know that somebody we regularly interview on this show is actually one of the people who spearheaded the investigation to get Obama's birth certificate uncovered. Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, who's an attorney and in his practice, and he's actually one of the people in 2008, 2009 who spearheaded that whole investigation. I remember that video Donald Trump put out during during that time when Obama was being elected, saying, "I'll give $1 million to the first place that Obama chooses, as long as he reveals his birth certificate." And then it just so happens that we actually have somebody regularly on the show who was actually helping bring out some of the very questionable things regarding Obama. Of course, there are many issues with the Obama administration and during the years of his reign over the United States. And I feel like what you're saying is very accurate. People are going to be forgetting how life was actually like underneath Obama's authority here as the president, because what you see is that Obama set into motion a lot of things during his administration that were specifically designed to not kick into action until this next president took into office. And so it's really weird, because whenever you look at the mindset of people who are extremely anti-Trump, they often associate things with, oh, it's his leadership that's causing this. And when we see a lot of the legislation that's actually making the country fall apart in various ways was based in the Obama administration, and unfortunately some of the administrations preceding the Obama administration, which raises eyebrows as well, because you have Republicans who were in office before Obama, and you also have Clinton, and you also have Bush Sr., and these people all they were part of the who's who. They were part of the deep state. They were part of the establishment. And I think a lot of people have lost faith in politics in general, and that's why I don't mean to start off this interview saying that there's people who watch our show that are avid Trump haters. I would not ever say that. I think that we need to pray for our leaders that God has put into the position that they're in. We need to, just as Daniel faithfully served the king in Babylon, we need to remember that these people are there by the authority and the allowance of the Creator. And so I think people have just lost faith in the political game. They've lost faith in the political system and the concept that if I vote for anybody, they all are tainted. They all are influenced by this deep state. They all are kind of going to sway towards leading this country down a very negative path, and a lot of people don't even see a value in being engaged in politics. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that there are anti-Trump people who watch our show. Of course, there's probably somebody out there who's not a Trump supporter, but I will say it's more so they're just taking the stand of just not caring anymore at all because there's no hope. And so I think that's kind of the position a lot of people take. And please continue on.
Well, that's the reason why Q is here. Q is offering hope. You won't hear this anywhere else. But Q has been telling us these things from way back, and we're seeing things unfold as it goes along. And so, you know, if you haven't jumped into Q, you might want to start. I just want to say this, that we do analyze Q drops on my Facebook news group, News Tomorrow. News, and the 2 is a numeral, News Tomorrow, and on Facebook. So we do discuss the Q drops. It's important to start understanding what's going on. The other thing I do want to say, let's talk about Mueller, the Mueller investigation. You won't hear this from anywhere else but Q. The media believes Mueller is operating on behalf of the deep state, the establishment. Nothing could be further from the truth. People believe that Jeff Sessions is not doing his job. Nothing could be farther from the truth. You got to remember, Donald Trump is an intelligent genius, and he knows how to play people. Now, the Mueller investigation, let's just talk about this for a few minutes. When Robert Mueller came to see President Trump on one day just after he got inaugurated, the press said Mueller wants to continue on as FBI director, and that was the story. But he had already served his term legally as FBI director, and he couldn't have extended it. But that was the story. But Q tells us the real story is this: that when they met, Trump probably presented to Mueller all of the felonious things that he's been involved in. And he said, now look, we can get you on all of this, or you can help us, you could cooperate with us and work on this investigation that the Democrats are clamoring for. And if you do, you'll get a more lenient sentence. So the very next day, surprisingly enough, he is appointed the chief of the investigation, and that was not by coincidence. Jeff Sessions, you see, so the reason being is this: while Mueller is investigating supposedly Russian collusion, that gets the press all in a Twitter, just, you know, they're like a feeding frenzy looking at various things. But meanwhile, you know, Donald Trump is like, you know, he's got this magic wand. He's showing them to go there, but right here, he's doing a whole lot of other things. And right here, he has been putting together over 50,000 sealed indictments for people to be prosecuted in the deep state. Jeff Sessions, he said, well, I can't be involved in this Russian collusion. So he pushed himself out. It's incredible. It's strange incredulity to think that he would be so important for Trump and not doing anything to helping Trump that he would still be there. He's doing his job. We got John Huber, U.S. attorney out of Utah, that is investigating these 50,000 things, because you got to push it out of Washington. You can't leave it in Washington at all. And so all of the skirmishes, even between Trump and Jeff Sessions, where Trump says, I don't know, I don't have a attorney general at all. Do you really believe that? This is all a show for the press to just gobble up and believe that Jeff Sessions is working on their behalf. And then when Jeff Sessions drops the gauntlet and prosecutions arise throughout the deep state, they're going to be caught breathless. They won't know what hit them. But all of this is what Q has been telling us, and this is why it's a very hopeful scenario that we're seeing. Did we lose you?
Still here, just a little computer sound. Sorry about that.
Okay. Incidentally, at the time when, going back to the military, when they approached Trump about that, just shortly after that, Trump had a news conference. I did want to share this video with you folks, but we didn't want to get copyright infringement and all. But there is a photo op of President Trump with all of his military generals, high officials, and their wives. And he says something startling. I wish I could show you this. Oh, you can see it. If you go to newstomorrow.com, I did put it up there. It's on the top right corner, newstomorrow.com. And you're going to see this. You're going to see what President Trump does. He has said that he's talking to the press. He says, "This is the calm before the storm." And the press were all aghast. They were saying, "What do you mean the calm before the storm?" And they would ask him, "What was it? What are you talking about?" He'd just say, "The calm before the storm." Q has constantly referred to this whole battle as the storm. We are now at the edge of the storm. It's not a coincidence that we had a hurricane just last week. We're at that very moment, as it is in the physical, so it is in the spiritual. We're at that very moment. We're at the precipice where we're about to push the deep state off the cliff as soon as these documents come out. Now, you did speak about Kavanaugh. That was a last-ditch attempt by the liberals to delay and prevent the nominee from being confirmed, and it's not going to win. They won't win. Kavanaugh will be confirmed, and we will see him confirmed shortly. And not only that, after that happens, this is the scenario. If you haven't been following Q, this is Q's scenario that he outlines for us. He says, first, Kavanaugh will be confirmed. Then after that, the documents will be released. The documents are being held back now because they don't want to conflict with the nominee, because even David Nunes, the representative, said if we start removing Rosenstein right now, we're going to delay the confirmation hearing. So the confirmation hearing comes first, then the release of the documents, and that's going to put a noose around Rosenstein's neck, Comey's neck, a lot of people's necks. And then after that, Q will have that October 3rd presidential alert text to everybody. And this is his way of actually communing with the people to quell any disturbances, keep calm in the nation, and to have this one-on-one with the people. I mean, it's all unprecedented. It's a remarkable, ingenious plan that's taking place on our watch while we're alive. Thank God for the whole situation. And I know that I pray about this all the time, and I hope that all of you out there are praying for it too. I thought I'd give you a chance to talk.
Well, I was just going to let you continue on. I think this confirmation of the Supreme Court justice is very current in terms of the implications that it could have. And I started off with the concept behind, if Kavanaugh is brought in, then it could possibly mean the overturning of Roe versus Wade. It could possibly mean some very big stuff. And whenever you look at how the country is divided over his confirmation, it's very interesting, because there's no time for him to defend himself, and there's no time for this person who's coming out with this sexual misconduct claim to then prove that it's true. And so what's happening is, if he gets brought in or if he gets rejected, it divides the country. And even in the Republican, Democrat, I'm getting tongue-tied, in the Republican and Democratic parties, there's divide over this topic because there's no way to prove it either way before he gets brought in. Is that correct?
That's true, but you know, like at what point, how do we come to this point where we're allowing and giving legitimacy to a claim that happened 35 years ago, doesn't know when it happened, where it happened, how it happened, doesn't know anything, wants the FBI to investigate? It's all a charade. It is a total fabrication, and I don't even know why. Well, I will tell you this. The Republicans have probably been bending over backwards because they know ultimately Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed anyway. So they're going to let them do as much as they can, but they can't let them delay too much longer. So if by Monday, if Dr. Ford isn't able to testify, then you know what? Let's move on. She never wanted to reveal herself anyway. She was outed by the Democrats because it's all a ploy. It's all a game.
And we see there's ties to George Soros
yes,
with this particular case. And, of course, we know that George Soros is the one funding these big riots and paying to have this political unrest across the country because he was a supporter of the Clinton administration getting in, and he failed. And so we see that there's this feedback against Trump from George Soros in particular. And I see that there's a lot of people tying some of the deep state to George Soros, and then whenever you see that this person coming out with this claim against Trump, not to diminish any people who've gone through sexual misconduct or who've been abused, but the point is that the people who are propping this woman up have been known to prop up false witnesses. Yeah.
This is true. This is the game. I mean, we knew it. I mean, how many hours of hearings did we have? And then at the last moment, before anything else, as he was about to be confirmed, this witness comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's all a game. It's all a charade. And I'm surprised that so many people are giving it legitimacy because it's just illegitimate. It's just crooked as well. But later on, Q has also been telling us other things to look forward to. Uranium One, major scandal during the Obama administration. Uranium One has to do with Hillary selling uranium to Russia and getting paid for it handsomely through Clinton Foundation. And they were also going to, now here's, some of you may not believe this because it's just so decrepit. It's just so demonic. But they were also going to give some of that uranium to Iraq for the purpose of Iraq using it against America, which would start a world war. We would see that the uranium from Iraq had the same code or symbolism that each uranium is identified in a unique way, and they would have been able to trace that the uranium that was used by Iraq was the same uranium that we sold to the Russians. But we might not know that. I think I'm confusing the two because it is a convoluted thing. But ultimately, it would have caused a world war because while Iraq would have hit us, this is it. While Iraq would have hit us, we would have followed back and hit Russia. And the point was that, you know, the world's worst nightmare would have occurred where the United States would have been immobilized. It would have been the subject of a nuclear hit, and it was all orchestrated. And you might wonder, well, why are they wanting to do something like that? And the bottom line is because so long as there's a powerful United States, there cannot be a one world government, period.
Yeah.
The United States is the only thing that keeps us free, and it keeps the world free. And the greater that the United States becomes, the greater the world becomes. So Uranium One is something that Hillary is going to have to pay for dearly. Some prophetic people, by the way, say that she won't be imprisoned they think that she may hang herself. Some prophetic people I've heard say that. The other thing, the other massive expose that Q is talking about is that the sex trafficking, if anybody thinks that Jeff Sessions is not doing anything, we have an unprecedented amount of arrests due to sex trafficking. This is even underage sex trafficking. And all of this boils down even to Haiti, to the Clinton Foundation as well, to Saudi Arabia. These are familiar themes in Q drops because he's been telling us Saudi Arabia has an insatiable appetite for child wives. And Haiti, at the time of its hurricane, at the time when people went to help them, the Clinton Foundation went to help, according to Q, lots of children went missing. Evidently, there was a quid pro quo between Saudi Arabia and the Clinton Foundation for child brides. And so the enormity of the evil that we're facing in this day and age, it should impress everyone listening to get on our knees and pray for Trump's victory, because the evil is far greater than we even comprehend. And this nation would have probably been through had Hillary come in. God gave us this last attempt to restore this nation, to restore our roots as a Christian, Judeo-Christian nation, and to bring us into a time of revival and awakening such as like we have never seen. God's doing that. God is behind this whole thing, and it's incredible to see God using Q, God using the president. And Q, by the way, often uses scriptures whenever he does post and whenever he talks to us. So it's a very, very incredible time to be alive. And I'm just going to urge you folks to do two things. You really need to pray. Pray for the quick demise of the deep state. And two, I want you to go out to vote too. Some of you people who think that you've just thrown up your hands and said, oh, both sides are stink. Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. But God's giving us a, can we call him a deliverer? Moses was a deliverer. Okay? Let's not get so, Christianized that we can't think that God's bringing a deliverer and its name is Donald Trump. It's true. God uses people. God uses people to do things. And so as he, go out there and vote, because your vote matters. This coming midterm election is the most pivotal time this nation faces. Because again, the deep state is not going away willingly. We see them fighting harder and harder because their lives are at stake. Their heads are in the guillotines already. So they're screaming and squirming. But your vote counts. You do need to vote for those people who are going to support the Trump agenda. Because you vote in Democrats, you will vote in for the demise of America. You will vote in for a return to open borders, to Obamacare, to no borders at all, and free and illegal immigration. And that will be the destruction of the United States. You can't let it happen. This is on your watch. This is on your watch, my friends. It's on my watch too. I want to do something about it. I hope you do too.
I think that's a good encouragement, because a lot of people forget to pray for those in authority over this country, despite their disenfranchisement with politics. You got to understand that these people still are making decisions that influence and affect you. And I think what your encouragement is, it is definitely something people need to take a look at and not totally be removed from their society around them. And I think that's important. And another thing I wanted to bring up that I wanted to ask your opinion about is the possibility of Obama running for another term, because I've heard it kind of brought up that he might be the only person who could give Trump a run for his money if a re-election time time came up. And so we see Obama is making the circuits, going around, and it's just very interesting to me. And I wondered if you had heard about that, if you think that that's what they're going to try to set up to possibly provide an alternative to Donald Trump in going back to Obama, because Obama was such a beloved figure in the nation back in 2008 through 2016, because he was the first African-American president. He was very charismatic. He was a cool guy, and a lot of people loved him, especially Democrats, and even I know Republicans today who voted for Trump who also voted for Obama. So can you please comment on this?
I think, first of all, it wouldn't be legal for him to run again. You're limited to 2 terms. And
I was under the assumption that they were consecutive terms. Is it only 2 terms total, or are they only 2 terms that are consecutive? If there's a space, he could run again. I wasn't sure if it was illegal or not.
Okay. Let's put that on the side for a second, because I don't think that he can personally, but I can't recall any actual law that says that, and we'll have to verify that. But let's say that he tries to do that. I think it would be in his interest to try to do that, but I don't think he's going to be successful. It would be in his interest for this reason. As he runs for president again, which I really don't think that he could do, but let's say if he can, all of these indictments, his Minutemen below him are all going to be going to jail. And he may be the last one that ends up getting to jail. So if he runs for president, his greatest defense is, hey, they're trying to keep me from running for president. They're throwing these things at me so that I don't run again, so that I don't become your president again. You know, that might be the scenario, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that personally, I think all of the information about Obama will even come out before that comes out anyway, before that time arrives. So I don't think that he's going to have the chance.
So,
thank God.
So that brings up this topic of the nation divided, which is something that people are very wary of. You know, a lot of people who don't want to be involved in the politics, they see that the nation is being set up for this almost civil war, and they don't want to be involved. They're like, I just want to follow my Creator. I want to keep the faith, walk after Jesus, and I don't want to be involved with any of this, because they see that it's left versus right, and it's all coming to a head. And so maybe you could comment on this unrest that's coming over the country over this divide. And I mean, I have liberal friends, no problem, and they have very one-sided opinion regarding Donald Trump, and it's all very, he is the bad guy, he is the one causing all the issues. And of course, on the other side, we have people who say the opposite. They say that Trump's the savior and that Obama and these other administrations are the bad guys. And so that's kind of what I see in terms of the divide. It's either pro-Trump or pro the Clinton administration that didn't make it in, and there's this unrest that is building to a head. Can you maybe comment on possible civil war, possible violence that is going to come out of all this information coming out? Because I can absolutely say that if these documents are released and it paints the true picture of what has been going on behind the scenes, that liberals are just going to say, this is all fabricated, it's all a lie, it's all part of the scheme to get us to, you know, love Trump, and we're forget that, you know, yeah, Hillary, you know, or Bernie or whoever. So what are we being set up for?
No, that's, you know, since Trump's ascendancy to the presidency, the mantra of the Democrat Party was to riot, destroy homes, destroy stores, burn cars. That was their whole recourse. And it's no different. The Democrat Party has always been that way. But let me talk to you about, I want to encourage some of you people out there, because if you think that, you know, the civil unrest is coming and we needn't be involved, you need to be involved all the more, and I'm going to tell you why. There are 2 times in American history. The first was during the birthing of our nation, where we had awakenings, Christian awakenings. The first one was during the American Revolution, but it was a time of war. I mean, Britain was looking to destroy the United States. They were trying to abort this nation before it even began. But there was an awakening during that time, too. Many Christians were arising. So much of the foundations of our American society were all due to Judeo-Christian foundations, through what ministers were saying in the pulpit each Sunday. The government learned from us. Now is not the time to be silent at all. Now is the time to speak out. Now is the time for Christians to really speak the truth. The second time the awakening occurred was again during the Civil War. Again, the nation was in peril. And there was the dark side and the light side. It was a spiritual conflict. That was the second major spiritual conflict in the nation. The third major one is right now. That's happening right now. And I would submit to each and every one of you that now is the time to take up your arms and fight. Now is the time to take up your arms and fight for freedom, because tell you what, if you don't, if this nation does succumb to the evil forces of darkness, you won't have much say as a Christian anymore at all. You won't be able to say, I'm a Christian. You won't be able to wear a cross around your neck anymore. You won't be able to have a voice in the town square any longer, because you will be banned. Look how Google and YouTube and Twitter is already banning every conservative speech now and Christian speech now. It's no different. If you go to sleep now, you're going to wake up to a nightmare. So I would just encourage you to just fight. Fight on your knees and fight for this nation. Because there were patriots that lived and died during the first Great American Awakening and during the second Great American Awakening. They did not love their lives unto death. But they did it for the people of the nation of this America. And let it so be that you and I can also follow through on what we need to do for a time such as this. We were born for this very time. Don't be asleep. Don't fall asleep. Now is the time to rise. Now is the time to take up your sword and fight for this nation, because God loves this nation. And this nation has been the greatest proponent of Christianity the world has ever known. We sent more missionaries worldwide. We gave more contributions to dilapidated areas worldwide. A Christian nation. We've done more than most any other nation on the face of the earth at any time. You don't want to fight for that? Mm-hmm. I think you should. I think it's time. I think it's time to really wake up, folks, because this is a fight for the life of our nation. This is a fight for the culture of our nation. We're going to see the overturn of Roe v. Wade. I know you've desired that. Some of you have gotten so befuddled that you never think that that would happen again. You were thinking that the rapture was going to happen any second. You were thinking that the Great Tribulation was on its way. But I got news for you. Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned. God is going to redeem the blood of the 60 million children that have been slaughtered. God has not forgotten them, and neither should you and I. And I just pray that we could all join hands together and fight for this country like we've never fought for anything before, because our very lives and our very purpose for being here is all at stake. If we let this nation die, the purposes for which God brought us into existence would perish. Perish. You wouldn't be able to do anything. You want to proclaim the gospel worldwide? You want to proclaim it down the street? You won't be able to. Okay? It's that dark in America today if we allow the forces of darkness to overcome. But thank God it's not going to. And I know that I have your support, that you're going to move forward, that you're going to pray more diligently, that you're going to be more conscious about speaking out against unrighteousness. I wish that everybody in the sound, with the sound of my voice, would have this mantra in their heart. I want to turn the culture of a nation from one that embraces unrighteousness to one that embraces righteousness. If we all had that desire in our hearts, okay, we see something going on in the school board, we see, you know, a third bathroom being installed there, say something. Okay, things like that 50 years ago were considered insanity, and now nobody's saying anything that it's insane today, but it's just as insane today as it was then, but nobody's saying anything. Gays came out of the closet, for instance, and Christians went into it. So what we need to do is we need to just galvanize our arms together, work together in all of this, and we're going to see a recovery in this nation. You know that some of you know that I've written a book about the return of Christ called Escape the Coming Antichrist. As much as I want to see the return of Christ, you know, I think God has given us a little bit of work right now. I don't think the rapture is going to take place anytime, you know, soon. I know that just this week there were YouTube videos that said, hey, we're going to go out and be raptured this week again. Don't put your faith there. Do the work. Jesus said to occupy till he returns. So until he returns, continue to occupy. What does occupy mean? Occupy the land. Occupy it for the advancement of the kingdom of God. That's what occupy means. Everywhere you put your feet on is an occupation for the kingdom of God and the removal of the spiritual darkness in that area. And so to wind us all down, to bring us back to Q, I mean, this is the whole point of Q. This is why Q is in existence. He's been informing us these things, and he's been helping us to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I hope that we've given you a good picture of what's going on right before our eyes here, because momentous days are upon us, and you're involved, and so am I.
Well, thank you for, first of all, your passion. I think it's very important to have a care for the society you actually live in, to want the best for it. And of course, your credo that you said there, that you want to desire a nation that accepts and venerates righteousness and rejects unrighteousness. How exciting, because we absolutely support that. And just so important, I think, for people to do what you're saying and pray together and come together and also be willing to discuss these things, because you're right. The mainstream media is absolutely where most people kind of digest their information about what's going on in this country, and it's completely controlled by the left and the deep state. And whenever you look at Q, it seems to offer a varying opinion that is not what the mainstream media is saying. Right, and also right. Some of the things that add credence to the Q drops are very, very interesting. And so we have maybe 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to start collecting questions right now. So if anybody else has questions, please ask them right now. I'm going to maybe get to 3 or 4. So if you want to ask, you better put it in the YouTube chat right now, and I'll make sure to ask them. But this is one I wanted to ask: is a lot of people are going to be looking at Q as a farce, or how do we even know we can trust that? And I'd like you to maybe kind of wrap up this whole conversation with what is kind of the validation of the Q drops. How can people know that this is something that is coming from the Trump administration, isn't just somebody out online? What do you know about the whole verification process of this Q? And is this a distraction, as some people are maybe offering, or is this possibly something that we do need to pay attention to, at least peripherally?
Yeah, well, I will say that I didn't jump onto Q as soon as he came out, because you do need to read what he says, and you do need to compare with the news, and you do need to divest a certain amount of time to it. But at one point I finally said, okay, let me see if this guy is true or not. And I began realizing that, you know, he presents a picture of things, of behind-the-scenes things that we don't get in the news, first of all. Second of all, he may even have classified pictures, as it were, of Trump in the Oval Office or aboard Air Force One, or aerial shots from Air Force One as they're going to a summit or something. So, you know, you stop taking Q with a grain of salt when you realize that, you know what, he's really showing us a side that he's very close with the president. And as a matter of fact, like I've said earlier, how that they drop these, Trump drops a tweet and Q drops his drop. Pretty much they call it zero delta, meaning, you know, zero time, you know, just exactly at the same time. I mean, it could be a minute off, but still, that's impressive. I mean, that's one of the things that he gives us to start believing what he's saying. And then when we see things happening, you know, then there's no question. There's no question. He's not a LARP. He's not disinformation. He may be disinformation to the deep state, because the deep state also watches Q. So he may say things to get them into a position of exposing themselves, but all of that will come out further. I mean, sometimes we don't see it right then and there. Only later on does he help us to understand that.
All right, I'm looking in here, and the only question I see so far, feel free to not answer if you don't want to. Somebody is asking, do you think that Q is revealing that Trump is a flat earther by exposing NASA with the Space Force?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe that. What I do believe is the Space Force is going to be very, very crucial. Again, we were talking about this conflict between the intel agencies, the alphabet agencies, and the military intelligence. That there has been that conflict. Now, with the Space Force, my opinion is that he's going to use that to survey everything, that everything will be at his disposal. It'll be top-notch military surveillance and for information that nobody can touch, that the CIA could never become the deep state again, the FBI can't cause treasonous things again, and so forth. So that's what I believe that the Space Force is all about.
My opinion on this is, I think there might be an interesting thing that's being brought out regarding this, is that we see that NASA in particular has a lot of direct ties with the CIA. When you look at who founded NASA and who was involved with that particular section of the administration. And so it's kind of interesting that when you look at the billions of dollars that are poured into NASA, which is a CIA agency basically, that Trump is basically coming up with his own space agency that would then validate pouring millions and billions of dollars into funding for various projects, when NASA has been kind of the sole proprietor of space research or information that's being put out into the general public. And it's kind of interesting that since Trump is a military-backed president, and his administration is military-backed, that he's then just suggesting a space arm of the military, which in a way kind of looks like a competitor to NASA, in my opinion, which I believe has a lot of ties to the CIA.
That could very well be true. I could see that. Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, go ahead.
One thing, before you go to the next question, one thing I'm reminded of myself. On my newstomorrow.com, the video that I have was not the video that I said it was. The video that I have there is the video that Q constantly promotes. And he says, folks, if you want to know anything about what the Q movement is about, if you want to know anything about what Trump is really trying to accomplish in this administration, watch this video. It's the video that portrays Trump's speech. And he only said this once during his campaign, where he was literally talking about doing battle with the deep state. And that video is a very important video. If you want to know anything about Q, go to newstomorrow.com. 2 is the number 2. Top right corner is the little video, and you'll be able to see it. It's only about a 5-minute video, but it will tell you a lot.
Thank you, and I think it's very important that people go and research the Q topic on their own, and that's a great resource. Lou's news reports there where they cover these drops.
On Facebook. We do that on Facebook.
Our next question is in regards to when has Q said the sealed indictments will actually be used to prosecute?
Now, Q hasn't said it. We know that there are 50,000 plus sealed indictments. Generally speaking, on a yearly basis, there are only about 1,000 sealed indictments at any given time. The fact that there are 50,000 tells us something. Now, I would not be surprised that well, I do know that some of them are being already carried out in grand juries. We don't know how far they are in each and every situation, but I do believe that that process has already begun. I believe, and I would say that just before the election, I'm sure we would see some prosecutions or some news about these sealed indictments come forth, because I think it would be very advantageous for the Trump campaign.
All right, two more questions. Have you heard about the emergency text that is supposed to be going out on the 3rd? What is this in reference to? Do you think there's anything that's going to be dropped around this time? What is Trump going to use this special presidential authority that he's going to sign to communicate directly to the American people? Could he be releasing information that is extremely controversial or something that he can't let the mainstream media get their hands on? What about this text on the 3rd?
Yeah, October 3rd, we were talking about that. So yes, it is unprecedented, but then again, we've often had parallels of that. We've had the emergency broadcast signal. In the event that this was a national emergency, you would have been directed to. So we've had the idea and the concept for a little bit of time. I do believe that when he does do this test on October 3rd, and I believe it's just a test, Q has already told us why the test is going to happen. The test is going to happen because so far all of the cable outlets, telephone outlets have all complied that they would adhere to the test. And now the test will show if anybody drops what they're supposed to do. If there are any fallouts anywhere, they're going to make sure that this thing runs smoothly and efficiently, and that it will encompass the entire American continent there. Sorry, American nation. And so I believe that once he does that, after we get all the kinks out, we will use that in order to quell violence, in order to quell disturbances, in order to bring the calm to the people, because we do believe that things are going to happen, and the Democrats and the deep state may act out in a riotous way. And just think, you get a text from the president saying, you know, we're ordering all riots to cease in St. Louis, Missouri, or wherever. You're all told to go home right now. I think it's going to be used in that fashion in order to quell the violence, and I don't think it's going to be used for anything worse than that.
I think this is very interesting timing-wise, because a lot of people who watch NYSTV, we practice the biblical feasts, we keep Sukkot, and it's interesting that the Sukkot feast is actually a time where people, believers, they go out and they camp together in the wilderness for an 8-day period. And it's very interesting to me, the timing of all these aspects of civil unrest. You have all the different aspects that are coming out, and it's seeming to be concurrent with some of these biblical feasts, which I think the elite and the deep state, in a way, sometimes they might line up some of these things with the biblical feasts to kind of make a mockery of Scripture in a way. But at the same time, I also think the Father uses his biblical feasts to reveal times and seasons and the way that things might play out prophetically. And so it's interesting to me that, depending on what calendar you keep, I know there's some varying opinions out there, that this text is going to be sent out on the last great day of Sukkot. depending on what.
Oh, is that right? Is that October 3rd, the last great day?
Depending on what calendar you keep, that it's landing right around that same day. So very interesting. So just wanted to throw that out there. That's what kind of popped into my mind when looking at that. But I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Lou, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us about Q. If you could leave us with where people can go for further research one last time, and also where people can maybe look up your book, Escape the Coming Rapture, or Escape the Antichrist, and leave us with that information. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jake. I have to tell you, Jake, it's always a pleasure being with you and your audience. You're a great guy, and I appreciate the discussions that we have. So you can, if you want further information about the Q drops, because we do present the Q drops as they come, and you could go to the Facebook news group called News Tomorrow. One word. The 2 is a number. News Tomorrow Facebook for Q drops and for everything else that's going on, you know, in the nation today and in the world. But if you also want to check out the video and check out the book, you could go to newstomorrow.com. Again, the 2 is a numeral. Newstomorrow.com. You could see the book. This is the book right here. This is probably the best book about the timing of the rapture, the timing of the Great Tribulation, the Day of the Lord, helping you to understand exactly what they are and why they're different. It tells you what to look for, what is the one main thing to look for that begins the 7-year cycle. There's one thing. It's not asteroids. It's not anything else. It is one thing that the Bible tells us that starts the 7-year time before Christ returns. And it's all in this book, Escape the Coming Antichrist, when the pre-tribulation rapture fails, and it will, by Lou Comunale. Newstomorrow.com. You can check it out there. Love you and love your audience, and thank you very much for having me.
Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for watching Now You See TV. I've been your host, Jake Grant, and this has been Q. Thank you.